And he looks at him and he says, it's okay to have many colors. I'm from a planet where colors are loved. And the more colors you have, the better you are. And we love colors. And so this little boy goes to this planet and he becomes the colored boy too. And after writing that book, years later, I'm writing my other book, Almost White, that came out. They once said, where'd that story come from? I remember it. I said, I realized in that chapter, I was the colored boy. Here I'm writing a thing as a kid and you're going, so that was the book I sent you guys.
That's such a sweet story.
Yeah,
wow.
Thank you. So,
I'm going to look at my emails now.
Look at your emails.
I'm going to go through it. I'm so sorry, I had no idea.
No, I'm not saying this. I'm not ambushing you right now. You're putting on your blast. I like to bring people on stage just to embarrass them and put them on blast. But then you never return my calls.
I'm going to have to call
someone.
my office and I say,
it's the colored boy. What the color? Really thought I was being prejudiced, something like that. I don't know what. I misinterpreted. I mean, but I love the fact you're doing that. You're doing books for kids that don't see themselves in
books.
books.
For our children, yes.
That's, to me, so revolutionary that you're doing that, because I think part of the problem is when we're not included in the picture, when you don't see Latinos in film, or you don't see Latinos in TV, or you see Latinos in books, our generation, the first 5 years, there's even an organization in California called First Five, most of the children born in America today are Latino. Mm-hmm. And with this huge market of Latinos, and if they don't see themselves, how can they love themselves?
How do they know they belong?
They don't know they belong. They don't know they're part of the picture.
You know, I was one of those children that didn't believe in myself. I always thought that all those amazing things happened to other people. But I loved reading, and I was obsessed with the Sweet Valley High School books. Mm-hmm. There were those books catered to teenagers, young girls. And I remember one of the books was a story about a girl and her boyfriend. And they were like really popular couple at school. But her parents didn't approve of him because he was Mexican.
Wow, that was in the book?
In this book.
Wow.
And then...
was it a good story? How did it end up?
It ended with them getting back together, staying together, but the whole story is about, the parents not approving of this couple, not approving of him because, according to the parents, those Mexican people were trouble. So imagine reading that book, 8 or 9.
That was building and working and singing songs and creating great food, all that.
Yeah, but when you're reading this book and you're putting these people in a pedestal, and then you're reading a book and they're talking about who you are and your identity in this way. When you're 8 or 9, you're not able to separate fiction with reality. You believe it. Mm-hmm. And so when I was pregnant with my son, I remember the love that I have for reading, and I remember those stories and that narrative, and I told myself that I didn't want my son to ever grow up not believing that he did not belong, and I wanted to make sure that everything that I did was to provide him with spaces that he will see himself in. And that's, in the radio, in everything that I do, in my life, it's all about my community and making sure that our children see themselves. So I thought about creating bilingual baby board books to introduce books to the youngest reader from the minute they're born. And I pitched the idea to a lot of publishers in the country. And those that did get back to me, they said no. And I got really discouraged because, again, I start thinking I'm not worth it. This was a stupid idea, and blah, blah, blah. So I left and I forgot about the idea and I moved on. And in 2014, I had a house fire and I lost everything. And it was a very, very stressful situation. Nobody was home. But you have to start from nothing again to rebuild everything you have. And I got really depressed, and I started questioning my life and what it is that I wanted to, what legacy I was leaving behind. What am I doing for my child? I'm telling my child that he could be anything he wants to be, but his mother is not being that person. Mm-hmm. So I remember the books again. And I started thinking about, okay, I need to get these books done. And I started pitching the idea to independent publishers. Mm-hmm. And I was on the phone with one of them, and one of them said, Latinos don't read to their kids.
Latinos don't read to their kids?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so not true. I mean, it's funny. I tell my kids stories, but they're horrible bedtime stories. I admit it. I tell them stories that are so inappropriate. So I have one about Silky, a horse that has a drinking and cigarette problem, and therefore the little horse can never save these children, and so he has to go to rehab, and he's given fresh grass and things like that, and he gets well and he can save these kids. And I'm telling these stories, and I go, I'm such a bad parent. I'm so bad at it. And not to mention that I took my kids to like Petco and told them it's the zoo, because it's being cheap. So it's like they had more fun than the zoo. So I just want to tell you about that. But I always tell stories to my children. They may be inappropriate and bad. And Susie does too. We want to read to
We
kids.
do, but that's the narrative. That's how we're seen.
Yeah.
It's still to this day, we're still.
Even though there's a book writer right there, and a book writer here.
Yeah, I mean, we're still. I mean, invisible to these people.
Yeah.
For some odd reason, we're still not. But that only motivated me to create my own publishing company. I got with my best friend, and we're like, we're gonna do this together. We're gonna create Little Libros, which translates to little books, and we published our first 3 books.
How'd they do?
Months later, and they're great. I mean, we're now at Target,
Wow.
at Barnes and Noble, at the museum. At the Museum of Modern Art in New York, at the LA County Museum of Art, at the Mexican Museum in San Francisco.
Wow.
It's
Very
crazy
impressive.
to see a Mexican in these museums. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, here's the thing, we have to do it ourselves. Like, we just can't depend on anyone else to tell our stories. So we want.
That's the lesson. The cavalry is not coming. You're the cavalry. So I think that's it.
Yeah, we have to tell our own stories. And not just tell our own stories, we have to share our stories. Look out for our stories. Go to the movies when you see our stories being told. When you go shopping, look for our last names. Purchase those products. I mean, that's the only way. And that's what I love, and I love to promote, and that gets me so excited.
So what's the future? What do you see yourself doing?
God, I don't know. I just want to give my children, when I say my children, my community, the children in my community, I just want them all. I want to see a Latino president.
Yes. I want to see a Latino president.
Yes.
All right. On that note, thank you so much for being here. You're definitely a woman who rules.
Thank you.
Ken Rodriguez. All right. Have you guys had a good time? Yeah. Okay. Now, our next guest, I've been trying to get my kids into school, so sometimes the show reflects just my own personal life. I wanted my kid to go to school. My wife's great about that.